what you're up to.
Not much. I put our conversation up yesterday for on YouTube, and we've had a lot of views. I wouldn't say a lot, but I mean for me it's a lot, and a lot of people seem to like our opinions about what we talked about yesterday. So I didn't know if you wanted to briefly talk about what our thoughts were on 9/11.
Uh, I don't pay much attention to the 9/11 thing because it was all a big hoax. Um, I it happened. At the time I was cooking in the kitchen. And it came on the TV, and people were talking about it and this and that, and I went on about my business doing because there's nothing I could do about it except just listen to what was going on. Um, anyways, and then at one point they went in to tell they told about President Bush, okay?
Right.
And anyways, when it happened, they said something about he was in Air Force One and he was over such and such an area. And at the time, I knew that was true because I had a child in the military, and I knew that when anything was going down, the first thing they did is put the president in the plane and fly him around because they can keep him in the air for a long, long time and refuel in the air and everything.
Right.
And he's not in Washington. And so they said he wasn't in Washington. Well, he wasn't. Well, then the next thing you know, he's in this kindergarten room in Florida. And I thought, what a great place to hide him out in a bunch of kindergarten kids. And they went in and they were going to go in and tell him. They went in and told him, put him on national television. Well, they went in and told him that this happened. And I looked at it, and I was a communication major. So nonverbal communication was part of those studies. And when I saw them tell him, I said, he knew about it. He knew about it.
Right.
He knew it beforehand. And oh, no, he didn't. No, he did. I could tell by the way he acted and reacted over it. It was like, oh, okay, well, that's done now. We'll go to what's the next step? It's just like what it was. And so I never paid much attention to it. People kind of made fun of me over it at the time, what I said. But, I never paid much attention to it because I said it's a big joke. It's a hoax. And then as people began to research it more, they found out that it was exactly a hoax. The people that owned the building bought insurance on it like 2 or 3 days before they blew up the building.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that because I heard rumor that the one person in particular, I don't know his name. If you said it, it would come back to me. But he bought an insurance policy days before the attack, and a bunch of insurance companies had to come together because none of them had enough money solely to insure the building.
Something like 2 or 3 days before the Trade Center was blown down, they bought insurance on it, yes. And at any rate, and they did it when there was minimal occupancy in the building. And it was something, it was like, it was early in the day, and I don't know, maybe it was a weekend day or something, but there were just some cleaning crew in there. Nothing, there weren't a lot of people. The people weren't in yet when they blew it down. And then there's some other things where I was reading on where some people did some investigation, and they said that there were actually 3 buildings in the United States that were set when they were built to be blown down, and one of them I think is the Sears Tower in Chicago, and which one they decided to blow down to get the people to say, yes, protect us from this and take our Bill of Rights. And that's what little Georgie Porgy Pudding and Pie actually did, was took our Bill of Rights away from us to protect us from the terrorists. Oh, the people that owned the building blew down the building, okay?
Mm-hmm.
That's the truth. It's a false flag where they blew up a whole building with 2 zip codes.
So how come the Sears Tower was spared?
Well, I don't know. I only know that they said there were 3 buildings in the United States that were built like that. They were built with the explosives in them to blow them down.
Oh, they were built that way.
They were built that way, yes. Um, it's my presumption that it was so they could pick or choose where they wanted to do it for effect.
Oh, wow.
That's my idea. They were built that way so they could pick or choose where, and it's not common knowledge, so they could still do it again for double effect. Maybe they need more than one. But they're not getting the guns taken away yet, so they've got to keep having these shootings.
Right.
They're still doing shootings because they haven't got the guns taken away yet. They won't quit doing the shootings till they get the guns taken away up, and then they'll walk around and kill the ones that have the guns. Okay, they'll take them and they'll kill you. That's simple. But yeah, no, the thing at the World Trade Center was it's terrible. It's a terrible testament to what they're willing to do and what our government is willing to tolerate to get us under, take our freedoms away from us, take our life away from us.
What do you think their agenda is, though? I mean, why would they be doing that?
Honey, we're all just, I shouldn't call you honey, but we've been friends a long time. I call a lot of people younger than me honey.
You're fine.
You know that. It's a control issue thing. They're taking our Bill of Rights away from us one step at a time. They're taking our freedoms away from us. We no longer have any privacy. They started monitoring all of our phone calls. They sold the airwaves shortly after that. And the reason we have poor phone service now is because used to be a tower strength could reach out like in a 20-mile circle. Now it can only reach out 1 mile. That's why they had to have so many new towers right away, because they passed the law that said the tower strength could only reach out 1 mile. So then if you were using a cell phone on a tower out 18 miles or out even 2 miles, you weren't getting any service anymore until they got up enough towers to reach every place. And people don't understand, but sometimes you drive along the road and something that looks like a rock is a cell phone tower. They have artificial trees that are cell phone towers. Stuff like that people don't even realize are cell phone towers, but they're also that they can take my phone conversation or your phone conversation, and when they pick up on it, they can trace you within a mile radius of the tower that it goes through.
And all this, do you think was done before 9/11 too, or do you think 9/11 was the build-up to being able to record our conversations and invade our privacy?
It was the plan. It's planned. This stuff is planned years in advance, 20, 30, 40 years in advance. It was apparently planned when they built the building. When was the building built?
Oh, God. Let me look. I'll tell you. Hang on.
But yeah.
It was... Oh, wait. Okay, I was going to say, that's some bullshit. Okay. Looks like 1973.
That makes a lot of sense.
Okay, I'm sorry. Tallest in the world was their record. So I'm sorry. Construction started August 6, 1968, and it was tallest in the world from 71 to 73. So yeah, that makes sense. And I do know also that these buildings were built to withstand an impact of a Boeing 707, because back then they didn't obviously have the computerized technology to keep these planes from running into buildings. So they had to make sure that if a 707, which at the time was one of the largest aircrafts available, hit the building, that it wasn't going to go tumbling down into the city.
Well, it's obvious. We know that the plane hitting it is not what caused the building to go down. The building was blown down with explosives. It was a controlled demolition.
I agree, because there's some videos, picture snippets, if you will, of the plane like going through the building like it was air.
Yeah.
And they
Yeah,
and the caption on that picture was CGI
it,
doesn't explode.
it's computerized digital work, and I don't know how they do it, but they can do about anything on the computer. They can take your head off and put it on my body
Right.
and make it look like you turned into me. But anyways, these things are planned years in advance, and it's a systematic organization to take us down as a people and enslave us. Is what it is.
Now, can I
And
ask, who do you think is
if I go,
planning these things? Because we're talking about Agenda 2030 and 21, but I mean,
well,
who,
if I got my notes out, because like I said, I don't remember everything. But I write a lot of things I write down. So if I got my notes out one time, I need to have those out when I talk to you, just to list the different things that have been done by our government in the military toward this. It's just like all of the. I mean, it was a terrorist attack. All of the gun terrorist attacks are the same thing. They're they're planned. There's nothing. There's no. It's not a random shooting. Okay, there's no randomness about it. It's planned, and they have trained people to do it. And I have a list someplace that has like the 9 different levels of training that they've trained them for. And
okay.
Oswald with President Kennedy was one of the first on that level. He was supposed to kill the president, and he was supposed to, after the shooting, go back to his room and wait. And that's what he did, and that's how it come down.
I
Okay.
have documents. I'm going to email them to you. Your email's still the same, right? Don't say it out loud.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a hard time reading a lot of things on email right now, but that's going to change too. I just
Well,
have
I've
so
got
much going on.
documents of I did put a video up on the channel, but I have documents with the NSA intercepting a conversation with Oswald in 1964.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Kennedy was
Yeah.
shot in 63, and I do believe that Oswald was killed in 63 because it wasn't long after the whole thing. And there's also
Well, that was November. I think that was November, wasn't it, when he was shot?
yes.
Okay. It was in November when he was shot, so it could have stretched into 64 kind of easily.
Well, I don't know, but see, here's
But
also
it was very short. It wasn't very many days. No. And Jack Ruby, the bar owner, it's because he wasn't even supposed to be in there, but they let him in there because they wanted Oswald done away with.
right, and I also have a transcript from his lie detector test. But here's one of the CIA memos. I didn't put a date on here, but that's okay. It says, received and used effectively your note on Johnson. Something I know you will be watching in days ahead is possibility of change or consistency in State Department's European policy. Particularly of interest, what will be role, and I'm reading this verbatim, of Europeans, in quotes, in department, and it's blanked out, etc. More important, less important, question mark. The question here is, what does it mean for Europe, question mark. No need for me to underline number and profundity of questions being asked. This is a snippet I took from a CIA memo regarding the dealings in Europe shortly after Kennedy was assassinated.
Well, they have newspapers that were put out in South America the day before Kennedy was assassinated, sold the day before.
Really?
Okay. Oh yes, somebody printed it too early. Okay, they got their information, they printed it too early. Cute, huh?
That's real cute.
There's a bunch of shit with it that people who really studied it know this stuff, and I moved ahead of that. And some of the things that made me start to dig into this stuff was, number one, the World Trade Center thing. Number two, the things I ran into when I lost my work and lost my housing and everything. And you remember when that was.
Yes.
Different things that I would run into. A woman a homeless woman in Indianapolis, actually, for a while. I would pick her up and give her a ride back and forth. Her name was Lily, and she was very smart. They took her house away from her on eminent domain and gave it to a car lot to put it at the used car lot. Well, yes, they paid her, but she didn't have enough to get another house, so they put her in a hotel until her money was all gone.
Wow.
And then she was on the street. Okay. Her house wasn't in a good part of town, etc. She had been a teacher at one point. She was alone. Her husband had died, and she ended up on the street living in a tent behind somebody's house, and their son beat up on her. She had 4 or 5 stray dogs that she picked up, and she would go around to the churches and stuff to eat and get clothes and stuff, and when I saw her walking, I would give her a ride. And at one point, I picked her up one day. I saw her walking. I picked her up one day, and I said, Lily, I haven't seen you for a long time. Where have you been?
Right.
And she said, well, she had fought and struggled, and she'd made a lot of trouble. She knew how to write, and she wrote to the right people, and she'd made a lot of trouble about the whole thing of her losing her house and everything, and ended up on the street out of it all. And she said, well, she'd gone to this one place, and she trusted this woman, and she never trusted any of them because they'd always pull something on her. And she trusted her, and what she did was she had her committed, and she got her on drugs.
Really?
And she said, yes, and they put her in a house, and she said, the house is nice, and she said, it wouldn't be so bad, but she says, on these drugs, she says, I can't write anymore. She wrote beautiful poetry. She said, I just can't think, and she said, I can't write anymore. She said, I can't think. She said, my thoughts are jumbled, and they don't come together where I can put anything out. And I said, well, then why don't you quit taking the drugs? And she said, you don't understand. She said, I can't. I said, we just don't take them. And she said, no, she said, I can't. She said, they come and get me once a month, and it's a shot, and they give me a shot. All right?
Wow.
And people don't, and that would have been in the early 2000s. And see, nobody knows about that stuff, but I set that into my mind, and I thought, why would Lily lie to me? She wouldn't.
Right.
This is what's going on, and people just don't know about it. And then I'd run into more things that people didn't know about, things that I'd run into, and that, well, like when the 2 Chinese ladies at the license branch sold my ID, that would have been the 16th of September after 9/11. I went in to renew my driver's license, and they wouldn't renew it. They said I had to have a letter from a social worker and a letter from a pastor. Well, they gave me 5 people that I needed a letter from 3 of them, and different pieces of mail to prove who I was to renew my driver's license. Well, how do you argue with the person on the other side of the desk? They tell you what you have to have, and you go. I spent all day getting it because I didn't know anybody, and anyways, I got what I needed. I went and got. What she did was she set up a whole new file for me, one that they could sell.
Yeah.
And it was later that I found out I was trying to help somebody learn to drive on a beginner's permit, and I took them down in the park, and they were having some trouble, and somebody reported them as a drunk driver, and they ticketed her because she was trying to drive without a legal driver's license. My driver's license wasn't legal. They didn't ticket me. Anyways, and I asked the police officer, he said, you need to go down to Virginia Street and get this straightened out. I went down to Virginia Street, and they said, oh, no, it's fine. Nothing wrong with your driver's license. Okay, well, that wasn't what I was told. No, it is. Okay. So then I run into another issue, and I went back. Well, anyways, it boils down to I found out at a later date that they had 2 files on me. One of them, so when I renewed my car insurance and stuff, it went to one of them and not the other one. Well, I thought if they put both files together, I would be all right.
Mm-hmm.
And literally, they had closed. Meanwhile, they had closed the license branch at Speedway where I had where the women had worked. They closed that because those women were selling IDs. Whether mine got sold or not, I don't know. And I complained about it, and they said, well, a driver's license isn't legal ID anyway, so it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't cost you anything. And I was flabbergasted with that. Of course, I didn't go and get an attorney.
Right.
But they said it wasn't any problem for me because the driver's license wasn't real ID, and I've not used my driver's license for ID since then, even though I could get a lot of flack over it. anyways, I had them put both files together. Well, then what that did was it said I had been driving uninsured for 3 or 4 or 5 years, and I had a terrible time getting things going. I had insurance, but it was only on the one file, so the other file come back as uninsured because I didn't even know I had two files. It
Oh,
was a
wow.
mess. But that kind of stuff, it cost me a lot of money, and it took me almost 8 years to get it straightened out.
8
Now,
years.
yes, 8 years. Almost 8 years to get that straightened out. Of course, I didn't know it for the first 2 or 3 years, But anyways, and then at that time I was in and out. I had to come to Florida for a while because I had no place to stay. And I lived with my daughter, and then I went to Texas, and I was back in Florida and worked for the church, and then I was back in Indiana. It was just a lot. And, but yeah, just different things happened to me that I started questioning things around the incident that happened to me, and it would grow into something else. It would grow into me checking out something else that wasn't kosher, okay? And there's a whole lot that's not kosher when you start checking into how our government's run. But it's all, even the propaganda is to keep us under control and to enslave us. And the Federal Reserve is he who has the money, owned by 126, as I understand it, very wealthy families, mostly Zionist Jews, the Rothschilds. I mean, you can look up the names. The names are there. They started in Jekyll Island off of Georgia. They had a meeting out there and started to get control of the money. And they control the money, and that's the only reason we're at war. Our military is at war with any country in the world. The only thing we're doing in Afghanistan is protecting the poppy crop. The CIA are the only real drug dealers in the United States. And the only reason they don't want the other drug dealers run is because they're in competition with the CIA, and that's the CIA's bonus money that nobody knows they have to spend. Well, CIA, as I understand, its home office out of Switzerland.
Right. This transcript I found with Oswald, which I'll email to you later, was him calling the Russian embassy about a visa, and then another person, I'd have to get her name, but another person was saying we can't issue him a Cuban visa until he has a Russian visa, and it sounded like he was trying to get the hell out of Dodge real quick. And then also with Jack Ruby, he insisted on a lie detector test, and I'm going to read these questions to you, and I'm going to find out what your opinion is. But the last two questions on the test was, number one, do you think members of your family are now in danger because of what you did, meaning shooting Oswald, supposedly? And the response was nothing. And then the last one is Mr. Fowler in danger because he is defending you? Again, no response. So the last two questions on his lie detector test were no response. Yet he claimed earlier in the test, and this is all on the JFK documents that I found today, that when he was asked, were you told by government officials to shoot Oswald and things like that, he was like, nope, nope, nope. I mean, he was just popping these answers out. But when they ask him these questions, he doesn't respond.
That's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Real interesting. Yeah. No, I would tell you to start out with looking up the Philadelphia Project and reading about that on the internet. And that's when the Navy, the military first did teleportation.
Okay.
And the things that were left over of it, and that was, I think, I don't remember the date. It's been a long time ago since I read this stuff. But it was, after World War II, 40s or early 50s. And it went on to the other projects after that, leading on into the MK Ultra project with the mind-controlled slaves and all of this other stuff. Okay. And like I said, I have a list of it, and one of these days I'll look those up for you because you would want to read all those. But you start by looking up the Philadelphia Project on the internet and read about it. When they teletransported the ship, some of the men were actually welded into the ship. But they did teletransport the whole ship.
Really?
Okay? Yes. And they were able to do that in the 40s or the 50s, so you know it's improved. The stuff you see on TV like Star Trek and all that stuff, that's not made up science fiction. That's what they're actually have done. And whoever's writing these things know it. And they're making good money off of it. And maybe it's to prepare us for what they're already doing.
Could
but
be.
yes, when you see science fiction, there's a movie, I think it's called Snow Train. There's several movies that depict these different things, but the one that I remember getting seen, I don't get to see movies very much because I don't watch TV and stuff. Snow Train, I think it is a depiction of how our world is kind of supposed to be after the UN, after UN Agenda 21, after they take it over and they get the people that they want to live stratified. And basically, all these people that they've saved are on this train. And this man has built this train track that goes all the way around the world, and it continues to circle the world, waiting for the climate to change back because it went into like a deep freeze. And they get to have fish when there's enough fish in the aquarium to have fish. And other than that, fish is not on their diet. And basically, the poor are in the back, and they only utilize some of them when they need one or something or other.
Right.
And they feed them some kind of pellets made out of roaches and bugs.
Oh, wow.
Okay? And it's a good depiction. But you have to stretch it a little bit to everybody that's alive still is on the train. Right. And the higher on the level you are up, the farther up on the train you get to ride, and otherwise you're in the tail if you're somebody like me who's poor,
Right.
Or when there's somebody like me, they would have taken out in the backyard and shot already.
Yeah, probably. Me too.
But anyways, that's one of them. There's some others. Like I said, I put some of them in my notes, and I don't even know where my notebook is right now because I've been so overwhelmed with trying to struggle through all of this medical bill stuff. And I got another big bill from Mayo.